Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. On today's episode, we've got Father John Riccardo from Acts 29. We also have Tom joining us. We are talking through all things prayer. We are talking about renewal in the parish. And I can't wait for you to hear how Father John and his team are helping not just parishes and not just pastors, but how they are helping to mobilize people for mission. We'll see you inside the episode. Well, hi there, Father John and Tom. Thank you both so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Honored to be with you both.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect with Father John. We were just out there a few months ago, so great to have you, Father John.
Good to see you, brother.
Thank you. Now, Father John, for those who might not know your story or know about Acts 29, can you share a bit about your journey to the priesthood and then what first stirred you in a passion for evangelization and parish renewal?
Oh, wow. Yeah. How long's the podcast episode? So I'll try to do this super quick. So people often ask me, so when did you decide to be a priest? And I say never. I'm a priest, I think, quite simply because one day, most unexpectedly in my life, Jesus invited me to something I had never previously considered, that was priesthood. I said to him when I heard him say that, and I knew that was him just because it wasn't my desire, and I don't think hell asks you to become a priest. So I said, Lord, if that's really you got to give me a desire for it because I don't have that. And that took a night's sleep.
Wow.
I literally woke up the next day. I was working at Ford Credit, living in Ohio. I was 25 years old, absolutely miserable with my life. Had considered being married for a long time, dated one really long-term relationship, series of other relationships. I found them all, nice, but unfulfilling on different levels. And I'd considered religious life for a little bit with an ecumenical group of guys. And was just restless for meaning. I'm deeply convinced that every man and woman is wired for greatness. I just wanted to do something great with my life. I just didn't know what it was. And I never thought of priesthood ever. I mean, I didn't go to church for 10 years of my life. I wasn't going to church when he called.
Wow.
I woke up the next morning from my job, which I was about to quit and go back and get an MBA, with this insatiable, unexplainable desire to be a priest. And so that's why I'm a priest.
Wow. That's interesting, Father John, because when I was in college, I thought about the priesthood and I did not want to be a priest. I did not want that, but I was unsure if maybe God was calling me to it. And I kind of said to God, you tell you what, like, and all my friends seem to have girlfriends, but I never really had a serious girlfriend. I said, God, if I graduate college, Loyola, without a girlfriend, I will consider the priesthood. And I met my wife, Mia, my girlfriend.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So that was my sign, I think, at the time that, nope, that was where my.
He kept taking all my girlfriends away. Well, maybe I was driving away. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's another story for
Probably
sure.
that.
That's incredible. So you weren't even going to church, though, when he called you that. So, you don't just like sign up for the priesthood. I mean, it's not. So yeah, tell a little bit. What was a little bit of the journey after that then?
Well, I should say I wasn't going to church, but I was praying. So
Okay.
I've prayed every day of my life. I mean, I think the Lord gave me the supernatural gift of faith.
Mhm.
I just don't remember a time in my life when I didn't know God.
Yeah.
Which makes my wanderings really bad, quite candidly, because I mean, God's always been right here in front of me, always. And so when I turned away from him quite consciously, I knew what I was doing. It was really a putting off game. In my mind, I knew he was real. In my mind, I knew Jesus had done for me what he had done for me. My will wasn't converted. I wasn't really convinced that following Jesus and being a disciple was a better way of living. And so when I just kind of said to him, didn't say this out loud to him, obviously, but in my actions, I just said, I'll get back to you. I know this is how you're supposed to live. I'm not convinced it's a better way of life, even though I saw my parents who were extraordinary examples and my 4 older siblings who were serious disciples were extraordinary examples. I was mystified that they were so happy following Jesus. And I was, indulging every appetite, and I was not happy. I just really wasn't willing to surrender.
Wow.
And I'm still trying to surrender, quite honestly.
Surrender
60
is
years old now, 30 years a priest, and however many years ago that was when I encountered him in that way. So I've always prayed. I always read scripture. So there was something there when he called. But I literally woke up the next day like, I don't understand this, but I want to be a priest. I didn't know what a priest did because I didn't go to church, right? So I didn't know how long it took. I didn't know where you went. I called a friend of mine who was in the seminary, who I had moved out of seminary. And I said, hey, what does a guy do when he's thinking of priesthood? He goes, well, you call a vocation director. I'm like, okay. He says, why? Who do you know who's thinking of it? I said, it's me. You got to be kidding me. And I went, no, it's me. So I called the vocation director. I said, hi, I want to be a priest. He's like, whoa, why don't you come in? We'll talk about this. And then the journey started.
Wow.
That's interesting what you say about the surrender, Father John. I think it's Rick Warren always jokes that, Romans 1 says, offer your body as a living sacrifice. The problem with a living sacrifice is it can crawl off the altar. And so, yeah, it's like a once thing, but it's everyday thing, right? We have to continue to surrender. And even when you say yes to serving in a parish or being a priest, or again, every single day, opportunity to re-surrender our lives to Christ and all that's going on. And yeah, we can drift from that and need to keep coming back to it. So, anyway.
So if I can, I've my confessor 2-3 years ago now, he gave me as a penance, something which I do now every morning. He just said, I want you to lie prostrate on the ground with that verse in mind.
Oh, really?
And just to crawl back on the altar. And so I do it every morning now. I mean, that's how I start my prayer. Lord, here I am. I crawl back on the altar. I can't take yesterday back. I choose right now to be a disciple. I choose right now to be a priest. I choose right now to follow you. And it's a super tangible, helpful way to begin prayer.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great insight.
That's an incredible surrender practice right there.
Well, thank my confessor.
Well,
I got
Father
good people
John,
around me.
now let's help fill in the blanks for us for now. So you had this call, you spoke with the vocation director, you became a priest. Now talk to us about then what led to Acts 29.
Yeah, it's been something I've been reflecting a lot about of late. So I think it's kind of a call within a call. So I was a pastor for 15 years, ordained in 96. So 23 years as a more or less a parish priest. I did a few other things. They send some of the dumb guys back to school. So they sent me back to school. I ran a marriage and family center for a couple of years, which was a blast. But then I was pastor of 2 different parishes and greatly enjoyed that. But I also felt an unsettling in me. We tend to move every 12 years, like many dioceses as pastors. And at about the 10-year, maybe 11-year mark, I remember just calling my archbishop and saying, hey, I know it's going to be time for me to move soon. I'll go to another place if you want, but could we pray about and have a conversation about doing something different perhaps? Because I think God's asking me to do something differently. And he graciously allowed that. And then over the course of the next year and a half or so, together with a set of close friends, we discerned that God was calling us to start Acts 29. So it kind of crystallized the founding of this nonprofit with 6 or 7 of us going up north on Lake Michigan for a weekend. I just invited people up north, had a house right on the lake, exposed the Blessed Sacrament for the weekend, had conversation, food, fellowship, and the core question at the heart of the invitation was, do we know each other for friendship or do we know each other to do ministry? Wow. And if it's friendship, fantastic. I love the friendships and I want them to continue. But I have a hunch that some of us might be invited into ministry. And so some of us, it was kind of an Acts 13 moment where, Paul and Barnabas are there with the church in Antioch, and the Spirit says, set Paul and Barnabas apart for the work of ministry to which I've called them. And so that's what we felt. We were 5 when we first started. This was 2019, and we're 11 now.
Wow.
And it is that. It's kind of like when a priest experiences or a man experiences a call to priesthood and then a subsequent call to religious life. For me, this has much been like that. It's a call to priesthood, and then it's been a call to. I'm a risk taker by nature. I'm not afraid of taking risks. I actually like that. I find it very life-giving. And so I felt like the Lord was calling us to consider starting something kind of like entrepreneurial missionaries, and we did. And the fruit for the last 7 years has just been beyond anything I could have foreseen.
So we want to get to more Acts 29, but I want to ask in that setting up two questions, two things you just said there, Father John. First of all, the people you chose, how did that happen? How did you choose that group? Is to me, I think a little bit the transferable principle is people working in parish who might be listening to this, they have to figure out exactly who are they doing ministry with, who are they people they want to go to war with, right? And choosing, how did you choose those people? Any transferable principles for somebody who's trying to figure that out? Who do I go to spiritual battle with? So
yeah, no, it's a key question because I think the reason why it's such a key question, at the heart of our work is really helping. I would argue that one of the fundamental problems in the church right now is we're way too functional and transactional, and that we have to relearn what it means to be human. And I actually think the mission of the church is to transform the human family into the family of God. I think that comes right out of one of the church's prayers. If that's the case, then that means that those of us who are doing the work of ministry better look like a family.
Yes.
And really love each other, or what are we inviting people into? And that doesn't mean to be perfect or something like that, because no family's perfect. So to the question, I think it was mostly centered around people that I had been doing ministry with, but not all of them. There were a few others that I knew tangentially, who were like-minded, who I wanted to pray about, is God inviting you maybe to step out of what you're doing and help create something from scratch? One of the people that joined was exactly that case. I'd never really had a serious conversation with them before that weekend.
Wow.
He was one of the founders of Acts 29 with me and the others. And then some others were just people that I had, again, done ministry with, and a few others that I had known over the course of the last number of years, who I knew had a passion for mission, were deeply in love with Jesus, and might be willing to step out of the boat.
So some fellow risk takers as well. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, thankfully, we're not all risk takers, or we would probably all be dead. So to me, this great, what I've come to even more appreciate is, again, kind of something that's core of our work, and I know it's yours too. I mean, just the leadership that you guys embody there. How do ordained and lay and men and women genuinely work together in a way that's respectful of all the vocations, respectful of the structures in the church? But I think that's often something that really only gets lip service in most places. It's not a lived reality. And I was beginning to experience it more as a lived reality, and then it's just grown in spades since then. So these were people who I knew. I'm very aware of what I can't do. I'm increasingly aware of what I can do. And so I was looking for people to come around and complement what my gifting is, and that I thought could really help me discern what God might be asking us to do, and that's what's happened.
Our 2025 Rebuild Conference was beyond all that we could ask or imagine. There were over 700 attendees from around the globe who came together to be inspired, encouraged, and equipped. This conference was created for parish leaders and diocese teams who are ready to transform and renew their communities. Did you join us? Did you learn new ideas, ways to strengthen your mission? Are you ready to join again or for the first time? Save the date. May 2nd through May 4th, 2027, the Rebuild Conference is returning to Timonia, Maryland. This gathering is more than a conference. It is an opportunity to come together with pastors and parish leaders from around the world who are committed to building healthy, growing, mission-driven parishes. For now, save the date, May 2nd to May 4th, 2027, at Church of the Nativity in Timonia, Maryland. Details and registration will be coming in months ahead, so stay tuned. We cannot wait to welcome you.
Yeah, so here, and even when you're saying there, people it sounds like you obviously did get along with, even if one person you barely knew before, but I assume you got along pretty well on that retreat. But then the spiritual giftings too, the complementarity, just spiritual giftings, but probably complementarity of other just kind of basic abilities and skills and personalities and that kind of thing. Does that sound right about kind of like why you think this has kind of worked, or what you?
Yeah, although it's funny because it wasn't like we went, okay, I can do this, you can do
Right.
that, you can do that. Okay, good, let's try it. It really was. We have even as we've grown, we've got people who've come to us who oftentimes there's not at all a clear awareness of what you're going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
It's more a clear awareness of the Lord's inviting you to this. And so there's kind of an invitation of, because I imagine Paul and Barnabas after that prayer meeting or whatever it was,
Yeah, with
they
the Holy
probably went out for coffee and went like, now what do we do? So in other words, all they had was the experience of the Spirit saying, we want them. The Trinity wants them for this purpose. He'll make that purpose clear eventually. So sometimes I think people have a clear plan and then they go from there. And other times it's like the Lord has the plan and he calls people into it. And then the plan becomes clear as it goes. So in our case, it was very much just the situation of, we know God's doing something and wants to do something through us. And we're aware of our gifts, whatever, but we don't know what it is yet. We just know he's called us. I mean, it was so profound.
Yeah, I think
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, there are those two ways you can go about. Hey, God's called us, and let's figure out what it is. Or someone has a vision, someone says this is where we're going, and now I need to start to find the people that can be with me.
Yeah.
The other thing you said a few minutes back that I did want to talk about real quick, you said you're a risk taker, and maybe this is a challenging question to ask for someone who's a risk taker, but what do you then say to the priests out there who are not risk takers or feel risks, like you fear the risk, and is there a way for them to grow, or maybe you surround? Yeah, I'll let you answer that way. Then I have a thought, but
I think that's a super important question. And especially because, like for my peers, so guys who are, 30 or so years ordained, maybe 20 and up, I often say to my brothers and those who are working in diocesan or parish ministry, we were trained for a very different era.
mm-hmm.
We were trained for a time that's just doesn't look like this time. And so what happens is now all of a sudden it's like, it's not enough just to do Tuesday devotions and, bingo and, let's offer the sacraments and people will come. Let's just have a parish school and everything will be fine. Let's not just keep the machine running. We're, in the words of From Christendom to Apostolic Mission, we've shifted eras.
Yes.
And so that means how do we discern what to do now? And I think what cripples many of us is the fear of failure. We're just afraid of failing. So no one's ever been where we are right now.
Yeah.
And so we can do a couple of different things. We can rely on best practices. We can call other people. We can brainstorm. We can do all sorts of different things. Or we can actually try things, hopefully prayerfully discerned. And I think connected to that, to those who are risk averse, we should redefine failure as quitting. I think that's just super important to hear. The only single way we can fail is to quit, just give up. If we try things and they don't work, I think that's just discernment.
Yeah. That's on the process. And then, and if we're learning, fear is not, failure is not final, as I think Churchill said. And
yeah, I love that line.
Seth Godin says, if you're afraid of failure, if failure is not an option, neither is success, right? It's just part of the game, and it's redefining the failure. You're learning, you're growing, you're figuring things out. But I think the other failure a little bit probably is, you said quitting, but also we're just running the same plays that we know don't work. Like if we know they're not working, we're trying to go back to that past of Christendom. We're not in that anymore.
Yeah, we've heard people say over and over again, you've got to move from maintenance to mission. But I think like everybody deep down, it's like, well, of course I want to do mission. But I think the reason that we are often hesitant to do that, and the reason that people stay in maintenance, just keeping the machine running, is because it's comfortable and it won't fail. But it will fail actually in another way. It'll fail because things they'll die out. Yeah. And we just want to say over and over again, like, God's chosen us to be alive right now for a reason. And he's not anxious and he's not nervous. And he's got a plan for every single parish and every diocese and every life. We just have to learn how to ask him, what is the plan?
That's why you have the maybe you can say a little about this, and then Melissa, I'll let you take it back. Sorry, I'm like
Okay.
the Joan of Arc on your which I'm envious of your offices. I want to create it in the rebuilt mindset, but I saw your offices and I'm in the global headquarters. It's like a little room right here. That's it. So anyway, I'm envious of your offices. But yeah, when you want to say about the Joan of Arc quote, and because I think that's a little bit of where.
Yeah. So outside of Our Lady is our primary patron or patroness, and then St. Paul, but Joan's really a key patroness for us. And I'm fascinated by how this, 15th century illiterate peasant girl has just broken into the time that we're living in right now. And she shows up in so many places. It's really something to me. And people often say, sometimes we adopt saints, sometimes the saints adopt us. I never had a devotion to Joan of Arc. Didn't know anything about Joan of Arc. And maybe 10 years ago, she very powerfully broke into my life and very deeply marks our work. And one of Joan's great quotes, and it's on our wall here in our office, as you alluded to, she was asked before she began the mission, "Aren't you afraid?" And she says, "No, I'm not afraid. God is with me, and I was born for this." And we want everyone to learn how to think the same way, because that's true for every one of us, not just her. And that's not pride. I mean, we're all tempted to pride, obviously, but that's not pride. That's magnanimity. Joan has a desire to do great things for God, and that's what we should all want in ministry. We want to do great things for God. Who cares if anybody ever knows who any of us are?
Yeah.
But man, I want everybody to know who Jesus is.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you have a few different patrons. Because after going to Acts, I'm like, we need some patrons. We need some and we talked about it. We got 4 now, and we just like, I was trying to choose one. Or like, all right, we'll do all 4. So I'm glad to hear that. And it's interesting when I saw yours about St. Joan of Arc in my vision now of a rebuild office. At some point, I want to put Esther. And who knows if you were not made for such a time as this. And so that's our kind of Joan of Arc quote. I think the same exact thing. So
love it. I can't wait to see that happen. Well, Father John, Acts 29 is such an incredible name. And I would love if you could, first of all, just share with our listeners how you came up with that, what the meaning is, and then also just share how are you helping parishes and leaders and teams right now?
Yeah, I wish I could say we came up with the name. We actually did, and we stole it. It's actually used in a variety of different contexts. So my former archbishop, who's retired now, used it in a synod that we had on the new evangelization back in 2016. I've seen a number of evangelicals use it too. Hopefully people know there's only 28 chapters in the Acts of the Apostles, but in case you don't, there's only 28 chapters in the Acts of the Apostles. And so the idea, the name behind Acts 29 actually is richer than it might appear. It's richer to me than it originally appeared. So it means, on one hand, that we're living the next chapter of Acts, if you will, that the Spirit who wrote the history of the early church is writing right now through you and me. But I think it means more than that. It means something like a retrieval of what made the early church so fruitful. Everything from having one mind and one heart, like the early church had, the primacy of the charism and the proclamation of the gospel especially to a culture and a generation both in and out of the church that has never really heard the gospel. Of what we might argue is kind of the balancing of the Petrine and the Pauline charisms in the priesthood. For many people who are ordained, I think Peter is more the model. But for my whole life, it's really been Paul. I mean, I lived in Rome for a number of years, and I was fortunate to give tours to Peter's grave. I have a huge devotion to Peter. But I think Paul and a Pauline model of priesthood, as we see it in Acts, and then in his letters, of course, is super timely right now. His deep friendships, I think you can make the case his closest friends are a married couple. I think it's Priscilla and Aquila. They show up everywhere where he is. I think there's a lot to learn from that Paul's anything but a lone ranger. We would say Paul never had a staff. And we don't mean by that Paul was doing life alone. We mean that Paul never related to the people that he was doing ministry with as a staff.
Mm-hmm.
They were brothers and sisters to whom he often says, I owe my life. There's something about recovering that, because over and over again, we hear from priests things like what they're doing is not human, it's not sustainable, and I can't see Jesus living this way. And so going back to the early church's model, as the culture around us becomes more and more ignorant or hostile to Christianity, depending upon where we are, is essential. Really learning the primacy of spiritual gifts. How do we all operate in our gifting? Relationship of men and women. So I think the witness of the early church, which won a hostile empire, Paul turned the world upside down. It says in Acts. I think that's the call in the church right now, is to turn the world upside down. We're in our own country, we're at each other's throats. We're incredibly polarized. Oftentimes, unfortunately, in the church, we're incredibly polarized. But Paul is helping everybody to understand that the only single enemy that we have is not another human being, it's the devil and his minions. So he helps us get clear on, no one else is my enemy, which means I won't demonize another person. I can't demonize another person. We just don't see the same way right now. Even people who do really wicked things, they're not the enemy. They're just rebels. I can be a rebel some days still. With rebels, you try to win them. That's the call. So those are some of the things that are involved in that name, which we think it might be our name as our apostolate, but it's us as the church right now that we are Acts 29, I think, all of us.
Love that. I think that's so powerful, especially, when you talk about we are all a part of this right now. If you follow the Great Adventure Bible timeline, it says that we are now, this is our time. This part of the timeline is still going. And I think that your mission, your ministry just really does a great job of exemplifying that. Now,
God be praised.
for sure. Now, could you talk to us a little bit about how are you helping parishes? How are you helping teams? What does that look like? I know some of our team got an opportunity to come in and spend time with your team, but maybe share a little bit about how you're helping just with parish renewal in general.
Yeah, I'll try to make this super brief. So at the heart of our work, what we really feel is the charism that God gave us to give away, which is why we don't charge for our work. So we do what we do for free, because it would be stealing from God otherwise. So we think that God's entrusted to us new ways of thinking. That's really the heart of what we do. I mean, Romans 12, you alluded to it earlier, Tom. I mean, that's the foundational text for us. Do not be conformed to this world, but rather be transformed by the renewal of your mind so that you might be able to discern God's will. I mean, that passage is foundational for us in our ministry. So what we think God's entrusted to us that we're trying to help people learn how to do are these three, what we call essential principles, which are simple but not easy, because thinking is not easy. So the first principle is reacquiring a biblical worldview, getting clarity again on who's God, why did he make the world, why is it messed up, what's he done about it, who's the enemy, who's not the enemy, what's it mean to say Jesus is Lord, what's the mission of the church, everything, right? So learning how to see again. Because Frank Sheed, great Catholic author, he said once, like 60 years ago, most of us, if we're honest, we have mostly worldly minds with a few Catholic patches. And I don't watch TV and I don't do much with the news. I read a lot of scripture. I have a mostly worldly mind. And if that's the case for me, and I'm not living in a news feed or on social media, then how does anybody else have a chance?
Right.
So I think that's true, right? So reacquire a biblical worldview. Second essential principle is having our minds reconfigured to Jesus for mission. So getting rewired on the need for us to be aspiring to be well, especially as leaders in the church. Because, the age-old principle, which is often repeated today, hurt people hurt people. And we got a lot of hurt people leading in the church. I'm sure I hurt a lot of people in my time as a pastor. I got hurt by a lot of people as a pastor, but healed people heal people. And so we have to, if I'm a part of a team, especially if I'm leading a team and I'm not at least wanting to be well, then the team isn't well, right? Really understanding what leadership looks like. What does biblical leadership look like? Is it authority or is it power? And if it's authority, what's the difference between that and power? I think most of us have experienced, certainly in the world, but unfortunately often in the church too, people are wielding it as power when that's actually not what's entrusted to them. Authority is given to me for the good of the people that I care for, not for me. Augustine says, this is an amazing line. It's a good thing for you that I'm your leader. What an audacious thing to say, right? And they're sitting there going, it is. How many of the people that we pastor or lead would say, man, I'm so glad Father John's my pastor. I don't know that many people would say that. So getting clarity on leadership, being clear on what the mission is in the church, in the church's language, rescuing, renewing, and transforming the human family into the family of God, which should animate what we do. And then most especially the third essential principle is what we call restoring the initiative to God, learning how, in Cardinal Cantalamessa's words, to pray in order to know what the work is, as opposed to just praying before we do our work. That's really the heart of everything we do. So those principles we imbue into the things that we do, and we do four main things. They're super simple to list. One, we created an experience called the Rescue Project, which is really geared towards that first essential principle of helping people reacquire a biblical worldview. It's our way of proclaiming the gospel. It's a video experience that's free. It's on 6 different languages. It's easily accessed, intended to be done in small groups, whether it's in homes or parishes or wherever the case might be. We do leadership immersives, like Tom and some others from Rebuilt came out, where we do week-long offsites where people can get away from the game of whack-a-mole, which is what most of us play most days. And from Monday through Friday, it's just a chance for us to create an environment to both share what it is that God's given us, and then a lot of time for a team just to talk with each other and to pray about some things that we put on the table for them to pray with.
Yeah. Can I say a word about that? I know you got
Yeah,
two.
please.
But no, it was just, the hospitality of your team was amazing. We're a team, we're a parish that, has hospitable as a core value for us. And I just was amazed by the hospitality of your team. So I just want to encourage anyone listening to this, if you can get to do the immersive, and you said you do it for free, it's just investment in your time. And yeah, both the hospitality and then the encouragement to just making prayer more a part. I think we're still learning that. We're still trying to bring that out. But anyway, I just want to jump in there. I'm sorry. Let me get Blair too.
No, just a note on the hospitality, because I think this is super important for parishes. Hospitality and beauty is not transactional. It's really human. I mean, what it does is it opens up hearts. When you walk into a parish and you see, no tablecloth and soup and a styrofoam cup, I mean, it doesn't tend to crack open your heart. But when beauty doesn't have to be expensive at all. It just means you put some time into it. And when people walk into church environments and they see something different, it has an amazing way of saying to them, wow, like you did all this for me?
Yes.
And then that prepares the heart and the mind to receive what it is you want to give. So I think the church has a lot to learn on that and just the importance of those things. So I appreciate your comment. Two other quick things we do. We do retreats for clergy and bishops and priests, deacons, bishops. We've had the luxury of being with about 6,000 priests over the last 7 years.
Wow.
It's given us on retreat. So, for 3, 4, 5 days at a time and praying with guys and listening to guys. And it's given us a really privileged glimpse into the state of our brothers. And I would say probably 60% of the 6,000 guys we've been with are thriving. Wow. And 40% of them are not. And the 40% that are not, they love Jesus and they love the church and they love their people, but something's just not working well. Oftentimes they're just lonely, they're discouraged, they feel isolated. the support that used to be there and the culture's gone. And so, everybody who's married knows this, but I don't think priests, we don't talk about this very often. So we try to talk about it a lot. And then the last thing we do is we do a fair amount with media and events just to try to amplify however we can what God's given us to give away as widely as we can.
Easter changes everything. But the question for your parish is simple. Will inspiration turn into action? Our new 5-week Easter message series, Go, is designed to help you move your people from spectator to servant. Beginning on Easter Sunday, this series walks your parish through a clear invitation. Do good. Be sent. Step forward. Serve. Grow. Grounded in Scripture and built specifically for the Easter season in Year A, Go helps parishioners see that serving is not filling a role. It is living the resurrection. You'll receive 5 fully written, completely customizable homilies, plus coordinated small group discussion guides, so your entire parish moves in one direction. If you're ready to turn Easter momentum into volunteer engagement, it's time to go. Visit rebuiltparish.com/Easter to access the series today.
So going back to something I think you said about way back in the podcast about laity and the clergy working together more and being, because that's obviously probably some of the pathway for priests to not feel alone. Anything you would share to a priest listening to this, or even a lay person listening to this, about how for that mutual support to happen, for that mutual work to happen that you have learned?
I learned it the hard way. I think I was taught in seminary not to be vulnerable. If not explicitly, certainly implicitly.
Mm-hmm.
I know guys who have bishops who've told them you are not to be friends with the people you work with. You are not to be friends with the people in your parish. And I can't think of anything more inhuman to say to a man.
Mm-hmm.
I think so between, kind of I don't think that's necessarily the case today in seminaries, but it certainly was for those of us who are kind of my age group, at least in certain places. So between that and, like, say, the Dallas Charter and the whole abuse crisis, that we've gone through over the last 25 years now or so, priests are oftentimes just really leery of letting anybody into their lives. But I can't live alone. When God says it's not good for man to be alone, he's not simply talking about marriage. Like, the most basic thing we can say about God is he's 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm made in the image and likeness of a God who is communion, then I need communion. And I think the most attractive thing that at least my brother priests see when they do work with us in Acts 29 is the relationship that exists here. I'm the only priest on Acts 29, and I'm the beneficiary of the love and the friendship that I get from my brothers and sisters here far more than they are of me. I mean, they've brought me back to life.
Wow.
I mean, really brought me back to life in a way that I don't think I needed. I don't think I knew I needed to be brought back to life.
Yeah.
And so guys see this and they're mindful of the fact that they often are living alone or isolated or want to be able to have that kind of vulnerability, but not sure how to do it. And I think we can help guys offer them a model, something they can see, and they have to practically discern, okay, what might that look like in my own context now?
Mm. Father John, you mentioned that out of these thousands of priests you work with, about 60% of them have gone on to and are doing fruitful work happily. Can you think of an example of maybe a priest or a team that you worked with that it just touched you in a profound way? Like maybe they've gone away and have done just such incredible work that you keep thinking about it. Do you have an example like that?
I'll give you, I was just on a call with a person in another country who was here for one of the immersives, and they looked at us as they were leaving, and it said they simply said, "I think this saved our apostolate."
Wow.
And they do amazing work. I mean, amazing work all around the world. A friend of mine, he puts it this way. He says, "I think oftentimes in the church we excel as a team in pouring into the people that we're caring for." But sometimes we do that at the expense of failing to pour into the people with whom we do ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do both. So we have to learn how to waste time. We spend a lot of time with each other in Acts 29. I mean, we put an inordinate amount of time into meals and praying together and just conversations, anything to build intimacy and vulnerability, because all those things are first of all, part of what we're called to, but it's also, it's how you learn how to discern what God's asking you to do. Otherwise, you only come together for the purpose of function.
Yeah.
And it can't simply be that. So our ability to discern God's will is greatly amplified by the fact that we actually love each other. We spend a lot of time together. We hang out together. Some of us travel together on vacation. We do life together is what we would say, as opposed to we have a job. So that's one instance. A second would be a pastor just sent me something this past weekend he was with us maybe 6 months ago with his team, and they got seriously transformed with regards to learning how to pray in order to know what to do. They went home, they started rolling out kind of a vision for how they were going to go forward in the parish to just those who were kind of the closest people, the inner circle, if you will, and then committee heads and whatnot. And then this past weekend, they rolled something out to the whole parish, invited people to come to 300, 400, 500 people that came to where they are. And they just invited them into praying into some of the things, the exercises that we tee up for people to pray with. And so it's become part of their DNA now. I think that's the point. What we're trying to share, we would say, Melissa, that what God's given us is super practical, but it's not prescriptive. Because we just don't believe that there's one way to do anything. But the mindsets aren't prescriptive. How you help people reacquire a biblical worldview is however you do that. For us, in a particular way, it might be through the Rescue Project, but there's no one way to help people reacquire a biblical worldview. And there's no one way to restore the initiative to God, but we have to restore the initiative to God. Otherwise, we're relying on our own creativity and intelligence to get answers to what should we do now. And nobody's that smart.
I love it. Dallas Ford has a quote, and I might butcher it, but human problems cannot be solved with human solutions. We need the divine solutions. We need God's.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Father John, something
why would Jesus give us the Holy Spirit as a counselor if we didn't need counsel?
We didn't need counsel. Yep. Again, that's all right. If you're at the end of your rope, the end of your understanding, perfect. You're perfectly positioned to now hear from the Spirit and he can give you what you don't have.
Exactly.
Again, that's the surrender part every day.
Yes.
Back on the altar.
Yeah, I think I'm smart. I think I'm smart enough to figure it out. So,
Father John, something that you said stuck out to me, and I want to make sure that our parish leaders who are listening really take this home. Even if they're never able to come and work with you, which we're going to have you talk about that here in a minute, all of the ways that parishes can work with you and get to have this experience. But when you talked about doing life together, you spend a lot of time in prayer together, having meals together, just spending time together. This is something that they can take back to their leadership team, their ministry teams, and they can hear better from the Holy Spirit what they're being called to do just through this spending time. And I feel like that's almost permission for some of them, because we know that parish life is so busy.
Yeah, I mean, we share the story, when we were back in the parish, of course, a team at a parish should be praying together every day, right? I mean, it goes without saying, this should be a non-negotiable, and yet it's not that common.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in our case, we seriously had conversations for about a year as to, well, when should we actually do this? Because there is no good time for everybody to come together. And finally, after a year or so of just arguing back and forth and, yeah, but what about this? What about that? We just said, hey, you know what, the heck with it. Here's what we're going to do. 11:30 every day. We had 3 campuses. Wow. So 11:30 every day, we're going to pray from then until 12. We're going to put a sign on the doors that says, sorry, we're closed right now. We're praying for you. And if, unless you're in a funeral or you got a sick call or an emergency, there was just the expectation that everybody on the team, we were about 25 or 6, was going to be in this conference room. We were going to pray together. And nothing changed our culture like that. Nothing changed our culture like that. It was really extraordinary. And it's such a insight. So I just can't encourage pastors enough and their teams. You're not going to find a great time. Just do it, and then once a week, we would spend more time. We would do a holy hour together, oftentimes praying for what we were going to preach on in the Sunday. We would do that in the church, and we would just have people sit all throughout the pews in the church. We would call it planting grace bombs, where especially when we knew it was going to be like difficult things we were going to preach on. Hey, just sit in this area and just ask even now the Holy Spirit just to come upon the people who are going to be sitting here at the 4 o'clock, the 8 o'clock, the 10 o'clock, the 12 o'clock, the 5 o'clock masses, that they might be able to hear what it is that the Lord wants to say to them. But those were game changers, meals together. You can't always have meals together, but you can do a lunch together, or even if it's twice a month. Just do something that's not functional. The intention is, you can't love what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so we have to get to know each other better. And people want to be known. Nobody wants to belong to a big parish because they don't want to be unknown. They want to be a part of something where people know them. Same with us in our ministry. So maybe do some things where you read together. We're constantly trying to grow together in understanding and, ways to learn, because again, the mind just tends to atrophy. And so how can we dig deep into something? It might be scripture. It might be a theme. It might be something that one of us read that we think is really rich. Whatever the case might be, find ways to intentionally be together.
I love that. I think our parish leaders need that now more than ever too. We know that they just have so much going on, and that permission to just be together and to learn to love each other so that they can work better together. I think, Father John, if they don't take away anything else, I think they really should take that away from this conversation.
Well, again, let me just say it. If the mission, and I think this is the way, this is right out of a collect in the Roman Missal for the church. If the mission is to renew and transform the human family, especially in our culture, which is so desperate for unity and for someone to see them and to know them, if that's the mission that belongs to the church and we're not living it ourselves, what are we doing?
Right. So good. Now, Tom, before I ask Father John how people can connect with them, is there anything else you want to ask him?
There's a lot of questions I would ask. There's always things along the line. I have questions along the line, but no, I think this has been great. It's been great to have you, Father John. And yeah, again, thank you to your team and the hospitality you showed to us at Rebuild the week we were out there. Really just appreciated it. And I love listening to you speak, and there's a lot of other people do. So I just appreciate you being on and the gift that you are to the church and the gift you've been just to our community and coming on the podcast. So Great to connect with you.
Let me just quickly honor you guys, because it's honor, not flattery. I have a passion for evangelization. I have since I can remember. And we sought you guys out and went and saw what was going on there when we started to really try to I want to investigate anybody and everybody who's doing the work that I think God's asking us to do in the church. And that included both Catholic and non-Catholic churches. And we made a point to just try to absorb everything we could from you. And you guys were at the forefront of so much. And I'm so immensely grateful for the ministry that the courage really that you took to begin to do what you do. And then the way you've responded by just letting it grow, and the way you're stewarding the graces that God's entrusted to you. So it bore great fruit in me personally. It bore great fruit in us as a parish community. And I'm sure it's still, deeply ingrained in the DNA that we have. It just comes out in different ways, but we're so grateful to be in the vineyard with you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate hearing that. That's one conversation I want to have. That's why it's a much longer conversation about that experience at some point, but we'll just have to have you on again for that.
We'll have to do this again.
Have to.
For sure. Now, Father John, how can our parish leaders who are listening get in contact with you? How can they work with you? Maybe have an immersive, or just get to have one of these incredible experiences with you and your team?
There's a couple ways. So you can find out about us at acts29.org. It's actsxix.org. If you put the 29 like Arabic numbers, you'll take you to an evangelical church planning organization. That's not us. So it's XX is Roman numerals. But so we can't go everywhere, obviously. We can't bilocate. I don't want that gift. So things like the Rescue Project are totally accessible for people. You can find that at rescueproject.org. It's all free. There's not only the videos, but there's the companion videos that really try to help prepare an organization for how to do it. It's so turnkey. Everything's there. We try to make available for people through videos and whatnot and books that we publish, which they can also access at that Acts 29 website. This way of discerning what God might be inviting you to do. One archbishop called it, after he went through it, oh, so this is like synodality done rightly. Where we're not just going to sit around a table and talk. We're going to pray first, and then we're going to talk about what we heard. Those videos are also available on that website. People can consider coming to a leadership immersive here in our campus. They can find out information about those there. But we're doing regional leadership immersives now. So, for example, you might have, a set of guys in the same diocese who are happening to be listening. We're going to a place that they might invite us to come and do an immersive for, say, 200-300 people.
Wow.
So we're going to go out to Wichita. We're going to go out to Oklahoma City. We're working with a couple of other dioceses where we can make a bigger dent, if you will, in one concrete particular area so that a beachhead can get established, because that's how you really get traction,
Yes.
The only criteria is they have to be the willing.
Oh.
We have the luxury of not only working with the willing, which is really a luxury, because that's certainly not parish ministry. But we want to pour into the willing and multipliers. And so if people are listening, they want to consider coming, they can find out more information on our website. If people are interested in maybe inviting us to come to them, they can reach out at that website as well and say, hey, we'd like to have you consider coming to our diocese. Would you be open to doing that?
Well, we will have all of those links in the show notes, so that way they get to the right Acts 29 website. So we'll have all of those there. But Father John, what a joy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for pouring into our team when our team was there for the immersive. And thank you for pouring into our listeners today. We really appreciate you.
My joy. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for joining us again.
Oh, always great to be with you, Melissa, and then always great to be with Father John.
Thanks, brother. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too.
And to all of our listeners, thank you. We'll see you next time.